The year is 2001. Little did anybody know at the time, but Ichiro Suzuki was about to put the league on notice and give the greatest performance by a rookie in baseball history. I mean, sure, you could argue, was he really a rookie? In 9 professional seasons in Japan, he played 951 games, had over 1,200 hits with a 353 batting average and an OPS of 943. He had pretty decent power with 118 home runs, and defensively he won 7 gold gloves, but nobody knew if this would translate to the big leagues. Ichiro would be the first ever position player from Japan. His iconic and unique approach at the plate is part of what made him so successful there. The on-deck stretches he'd do, the way he'd stick his right arm completely stretched out with the bat while looking at the pitcher and field. His swing was entirely about contact. He wants to put as much barrel on the ball as possible. He became a master of using this and even used the head of the bat to put the ball anywhere on the field that he wanted. It became pretty obvious to scouts that Ichiro had absolutely elite hand-eye coordination, clearly in a league of his own. With his elite speed, he took advantage of any opportunity to run that he could get. He was more closely compared to slap hitters, just put the ball in play in any way possible and let the defense make mistakes if they had to. It's also not like he didn't have power. If you watch his batting practices, he sends absolute moonshots on par with anybody, but being a leadoff hitter, he focused more on causing havoc on the base paths than solo leadoff homers. Even his iconic swing where he appears to be running to first base, he's quoted as saying that it's more of a result of the dramatic shift of weight from his back leg to his front leg. Everything is calculated. Now, speaking of his swing, it wasn't beloved by all, especially when he first signed to pro ball in Japan. His swing was nicknamed the pendulum because of the motion his leg shifting weight forward as he swung. This was considered to go against conventional baseball wisdom, so much so that he spent his first 2 seasons on a farm team because his manager absolutely refused to accept how Ichiro swung. In fact, it took a new manager to give him a chance, allowing him to swing any way he wanted, which worked out pretty good because Ichiro then led the league with 210 hits, a 385 batting average, and a Pacific League MVP award. From a young age to being drafted first in Japan, he was faced with doubts. Japanese teams thought that the 18-year-old Ichiro was simply too small in stature at 5'9" and 120 pounds. He's just not made for baseball. As you can see in his 9 seasons in Japan, he proved them pretty wrong. Many teams in MLB also believed that he was just too small to be a major leaguer. Could he handle big league pitching? How would he hold up in a full 162-game season, more than 20 games a year extra than he's used to? In the year 2000, Ichiro was a year away from free agency in Japanese Pro Ball. His team at the time, the Oryx Blue Wave, came to the conclusion that they simply couldn't afford to keep him and they would lose him anyway without getting compensation in return. It was at that point that they allowed Ichiro to negotiate with MLB teams using the typical posting system that we're used to seeing today. One team proved to want to take what most believed to be a risk. The Seattle Mariners won negotiating rights by paying $13 million. By November of 2000, Ichiro and the M's agreed to a 3-year, $14 million contract. They beat out the Mets and 2 other mystery teams that still have gone unnamed. Howard Lincoln, who was Seattle's chief executive, said the Mariners recognize that Ichiro is one of the very best baseball players in the world. He has tremendous talent and will fit nicely with our team and organization. Having come off losing Alex Rodriguez in the offseason, Chuck Armstrong, the team president, said Ichiro fits in very well with the Mariners. He provides a left-handed bat in the leadoff or number 2 spot in the lineup with excellent speed and above-average arm in the outfield. It took 6 Mariner executives 3 days of negotiating to come to the terms they did. Ichiro's only preference was wanting a strong Japanese influence with the city and team. The Mariners did say that going after Ichiro was specifically a baseball decision and not an ethnic one, but they had a huge leg up on the preference Ichiro wanted. At the time, the team president Hiroshi Yamauchi was Japanese and also the chairman of Nintendo in Japan. Lincoln was the chairman of Nintendo of America. They've also hosted Japanese teams at their spring training site, which Ichiro was present for in the past. Ichiro said, "Playing with the Mariners is like a dream come true. It is good to be joining a team that was successful last season and to be a teammate of my friend Sasaki." Kazuhiro Sasaki was the M's closer and played in the MPB as well as winning the AL Rookie of the Year just a year prior in 2000. 2001 spring training was upon us and Ichiro was given his number 51 jersey. Ichiro actually had no preference and did not ask for 51 since he already knew that was Randy Johnson's number when the big unit played for the Mariners. But he was now with the Diamondbacks and the number was free. At first, Ichiro was very hesitant accepting the uniform number because of Johnson's history with the Mariners. Ichiro went as far as to personally reach out to Johnson in an effort to not insult him. He promised Randy that he would not bring shame to the uniform or his old number. The last uniform question was the name on the back of the jersey. Weird, right? Ichiro Suzuki, in his 9 years of pro ball in Japan, always had Ichiro on his jersey. This originally started off as a marketing gimmick by team manager Akira Ogi. In fact, every single player on that first team he was on had their first names instead of their last names on their jersey. Ichiro Suzuki is actually a very common name in Japan. It has been compared to essentially being the Joe Smith of Japan, as Suzuki is the second most common last name there. Initially, Ichiro did not like it and he found it to be embarrassing to have his first name on his jersey, but he dealt with it and it soon became a household name. However, when he came to the US, although it was against the rules to have a first name on the back of a jersey, MLB Commissioner Bob Selig gave the okay anyway. Initially, Ichiro ran into a little bit of trouble in spring training and was struggling. After 3 weeks, manager Lou Piniella had some deep concerns. He was doing soft bloopers and slapping balls to left field almost exclusively. He seemed outmatched versus MLB pitching, and up until this point, Piniella hadn't even seen him drive the ball at all. On March 20th, 2001, Piniella went to Ichiro and his interpreter, telling him, "I need Ichiro to take a little batting practice." He then turned to Ichiro and said, "Ichiro, you ever turn on the ball?" To which Ichiro replied, "Yeah, sometimes." That very day, Ichiro drove 2 doubles to left field and hit a homer over the right field bullpen. Piniella says he comes back to the dugout, getting ready to walk down the steps to take his helmet off, and says, "Is that turn on ball, Lou?" That was pretty much the last time anyone underestimated Ichiro in the big leagues. The 01 season begins, and yeah, he went off. The 27-year-old became an instant fan favorite. He redefined what it was to be a leadoff hitter, setting the stage perfectly for the rest of the Mariners lineup to follow behind him. He proved to be incredibly durable, and he played 157 regular season games. A's pitcher Mark Mulder commented on Ichiro's playing style, how he substituted power for contact. He went on to say, "When I started facing him, one of the differences was that he made our infielders rush. You know how many times I saw Miguel Tejada field a ball and throw it? Well, he fielded it differently when Ichiro hit it. He forced mistakes." Brett Boone, who was the Mariners' second baseman at the time, said 50-50, whether Ichiro beat out a run-of-the-mill grounder in the infield. "I used to look at him and tease him and say, 'I'm jealous because you're kind of almost slump-proof.' He didn't have to put a good swing on the ball to get a base hit. It was awesome." Opposing managers would experiment with defensive shifts, anything to get Ichiro out, but Boone said, "Shift him all you want, he's going to beat you." He would give opposing managers fits. Mariners bench coach John McLaren laughed when opponents shifted according to Ichiro's hit spray chart. He said, they had the left fielder on the left field line. They had the third baseman almost shaking hands with him. They had the infield halfway in. They had the second baseman pulled sometimes. You saw every defense that you could see. Ichiro just held that bat up like a magic wand, like, what do we got here? In April and May of 01, he was named the AL Rookie of the Month. The Mariners were hot, having won 40 games in their first 2 games of the season. David Bell recalls the roster was full of professional, consistent players. I wouldn't say there were guys that were superstar players or elite, unbelievable athletes. Ichiro was the exception, by instigating at the top of the lineup, wreaking havoc on the base paths, and turning each game into an electric environment. He added an element to our team that really sparked us in many different ways. McLaren mentions how the team would view his preparation for games. He'd come in the clubhouse and he did the same thing right in a row. Everything was like clockwork. He'd get his massage, hit off a tee, light weights, stretch, snack, everything was just precise. On road trips, Ichiro distinguished himself by carrying his bat in a violin case humidor and stowing it in the overhead compartment instead of the plane's belly. On the field, he always made sure his glove was unharmed. He told me one time, a good carpenter has to take care of his saw and his hammer and his tools. This glove is one of my tools. Pat Gillick, the Mariners GM, recalls he would take it and place it in a spot where it would not be disturbed while they were hitting. Needless to say, Ichiro Mania was catching the attention of everyone. By mid-season, he already had 2 separate hitting streaks of 23 and 15 games. MLB for the first time allowed Japan to be able to vote for All-Star Game players. Ichiro became the first rookie ever to lead all voting in baseball history with 3.4 million votes. The 2001 All-Star Game, coincidentally enough, took place at Safeco Field, the then home of the Mariners, and he put a bit of a show on for the hometown fans. He singled off Randy Johnson and then stole second. You might actually remember that this is the All-Star Game where Alex Rodriguez switched to third base to let Cal Ripken Jr. play shortstop for one last time at an All-Star Game. Ichiro's impact to the game, both domestic and internationally by this time, was strongly felt. TV ratings were up anytime a team would play the Mariners. National news programs in Japan covered each and every one of his at-bats. Not only that, but the tourism industry saw a huge uptick, and there were even specialized tour packages for $2,000 that were made for Japanese fans to visit the United States to watch the Mariners in person. He was already on the cover of Sports Illustrated in the US. Safeco Field had sushi stands that began selling Ichiros. There were more than 150 Japanese reporters, photographers, and various media personnel with media access to games. He was just simply a must-see event. He didn't slow down at all as the season got into late summer either. The Mariners played 28 games in 31 days. He had a .429 batting average for the month with an on-base percentage of .461 and a slugging percentage of .487. Ichiro only knew how to work harder to get better. Back when he joined his first ever high school team, his father told the head coach, "No matter how good Ichiro is, don't ever praise him. We have to make him spiritually strong." I think it's pretty clear that tough training, both mentally and physically instilled in him, worked. Now, we talked a lot about his batting and base running, but what about his fielding that year? Growing up and through high school, Ichiro was primarily a pitcher due to having an exceptionally strong arm. When he converted to the outfield full-time, it proved to be a huge asset. In just the Mariners' 8th game of the season, the play nicknamed The Throw was born. Oakland's Terrence Long tried to advance from first to third on a single from a teammate. Ichiro unleashed a missile to third base, getting the out. It was at that moment everyone realized not to test him in right field. Mariners radio voice Rick Riz said, "That's one of the greatest throws I've ever seen in my life. That ball could have gone through David Bell another 10 to 15 feet. It was so true and strong." Mariners broadcaster Dave Newhouse said that the throw was like something out of Star Wars. Ichiro was a bona fide star, and even more importantly, a leader to a Mariners team that in the past few seasons lost Randy Johnson, Alex Rodriguez, and Ken Griffey Jr. Those are huge blows for any team to take, especially with so much veteran presence lost. The rookie Ichiro led the team offensively, defensively, and by example of persistence. They won 116 games, which tied the 1906 Chicago Cubs record for wins in a season. The Mariners won the division by 14 games, beating out the 102-win Oakland A's. His insanely good rookie year carried into the ALDS against the Jim Thome, Bartolo Colon, and rookie CC Sabathia-led Cleveland Indians. Ichiro and the Mariners beat them 3-2, with Ichiro batting .600 for the series with a 1.269 OPS. The next big challenge was the Yankees in the ALCS. Joe Torre famously told his pitchers for that entire series, "Do not let Ichiro beat you. He is the key to Seattle's offense." Ichiro, the humble star that he is, when he was told about what Torre said, responded with, "If that's true, it would give me great joy. I don't believe he's right." The Yankees were able to hold Ichiro to a .222 batting average as they beat the Mariners 4-1 to advance to their 4th World Series in a row, where they eventually fell to the Diamondbacks. After the Mariners were eliminated, the MLB Vice President of International, Jim Small, said he couldn't help but notice Ichiro's reaction on TV. "I remember seeing his face, and this sounds strange. He didn't seem dejected. He seemed pissed. In Japan, practice is more important than necessarily the game, and if you don't get the desired goal, it's kind of okay to cry." But Ichiro wasn't just going to sit back and cry because they lost. He was just pissed. But overall for baseball, Small reflected on Ichiro's season and said he opened the eyes of America to Japanese baseball. What started as a "what the heck is this guy" became "who's next?" All in all, the legend of Ichiro Suzuki was born. He led the league in plate appearances with 738, 692 at-bats, 56 stolen bases, a wild .350 batting average, and 242 hits, which broke Lloyd Waters' previous rookie record of 223 hits set in 1927. Additionally, Ichiro's 242 hits that season were the most by a player ever since 1930. Ichiro's stolen base and batting average were the first time a player has led either league in both since Jackie Robinson did it in 1949. In that offseason, he won MVP and Rookie of the Year, which he almost won unanimously, with one vote going to CC Sabathia, thus becoming only the second player in Major League history to do so, last done in 1974. Ichiro, however, is the first and only player to win MVP, Rookie of the Year, a Gold Glove, Silver Slugger, and start in an All-Star game in the same season. So let's go over the awards again. AL MVP, AL Rookie of the Year, Gold Glove, Silver Slugger, AL Batting Champion, and the most voted starting All-Star for the year. All of this in the height of the steroid era, where players were regularly putting up video game numbers. A man named Ichiro Suzuki showed everyone how it was really done. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe. What are your favorite Ichiro moments? Sound off in the comments below. I'll catch you in the next video. Later.